Hello and welcome to Make or Break, the show which puts you in the shoes of the professional. This week we are focusing on comedians in Portsmouth and we'll be speaking to a local established comedian and see if they can pass on some knowledge to our new up-and-coming comedian. My name is Tati, and then finally we'll find out how they do in front of a live audience in a challenge called Hit or Miss. Now, let's meet our guests.
Hi, my name is Jemima. I'm a comedian and I study paleontology at Portsmouth University. I got interested in stand-up comedy and comedy performance in general when I started doing acting. I've been acting since I was about 8, however I was always cast as the more comic relief roles because I just kind of was able to get the timing down. The two most hilarious roles I've done were the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland and Mrs. Corny from Oliver Twist. My first actual attempt at stand-up, I was probably about 15, and it was at a school talent show. I was eventually booed off stage, which was a bit gut-wrenching, so I didn't really try stand-up again until I got here to uni, and I joined the Comedy Society. They really helped with my confidence, actually. We've done a couple of shows so far, and they've all gone really well because it's such a tight-knit support system. The difference between stand-up and just being funny off the cusp, because like anyone can be funny off the cusp and just make a joke here and there, but it's like writing the jokes, getting the structure, and then perfecting them is the real challenge. And once you've done that on stage, you just kind of forget the audience is there. For me, comedy probably is more about a communication of ideas more than it is about making people laugh. Because the funniest jokes are the ones that are about topics no one likes to talk about, but it's still giving these awful topics such as racism, sexism, transphobia, any kind of ism or phobia of any like minority group, a platform so you can discuss these issues, but you're wrapping it in a package that isn't seen as taboo. It's quite interesting. So comedy is about communication more than it is about laughter, I think, but laughter is just a nice little side effect.
So, now we're joined in the studio with Jemima. Jemima, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, and yourself?
Good, thank you. Okay, so if you could tell us a bit about your comedy journey, how long ago did you start and what made you want to get into it?
Well, I've been acting since I was about 8 or 9, and I was always cast as comedy roles because I could get the timing down, but I didn't start doing stand-up until I got here at uni because some of my friends said, hey, you should go stand-up. I go, why not join the Comedy Society?
So what's the writing process like for you? How do you go about writing your material?
Thing is, usually something funny will happen within a situation, or I'll look back on a situation and think, oh yeah, that was actually kind of hilarious. And then it's more about retelling that same story, but adding more jokes to it.
Okay, so when you have finished your routine, you've finalised everything, do you show your routine to people before you perform it on stage, or do you just go out like that blindly?
I usually show members of the Comedy Society first, and then we help edit and trim down each other's material, as well as suggesting ways to improve like the delivery of the punchline.
So is the response normally good, like, or do you normally have to edit your stuff quite a bit?
None of my jokes have ever been that horrendous. So however, it's usually about 50-50.
Okay, cool. So stand-up comedy is a tough industry, and the first performance may be the hardest. So people often underestimate what it takes to prepare. So how could you overcome these first night nerves?
So when it comes to performing, with advice, there are the 3 Ds: diction, direction, and dramatisation. Your diction, your voice is a bit low, so maybe raise it a bit so it's clearer. Direction, try and look at one point at the back of the room, like at the very back of the audience, or do a brief scan of the crowd as you're talking. And dramatisation, be a bit more physical with it. Don't be confined to the mic stand. Like, you know, move it out the way, toss the mic in your hands a bit if you're not going to drop it, because if you drop it, then that's 200 quid out your pocket.
Okay, well, yeah, last time I did stand-up, I held the mic in one hand and it worked quite well, but I think I could actually just try something new, to be honest. My voice is a disgrace. Yeah, it is way too low. I've tried many different things to try and fix it. None of them worked, but I guess I'm gonna have to try harder on that.
Like, just try and really immerse yourself in it. If it helps, think of it like you're playing a character and you're not being yourself.
So, like an exaggerated version of myself?
A caricature of yourself. but only in the aspect of comedy. And that'll help with a more physical comedy, particularly of your movements, because you won't feel as confined. Okay, so I'm going to set you a hit or miss task for the TV show Make or Break.
Right.
With the advice I've given you in mind, do you reckon you'll be able to handle that?
What's the task?
The task is types of students.
Of course it is. Right.
Yep.
Okay. I know students, so I should be able to do
Okay,
that.
so we're back in the studio now with Aidan and Jemima. Aidan, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
So, how would you say your writing process differs to Jemima's writing process?
Not all that different because we're in the same society. I think it's just a case we tend to use a bit of different humour, but overall it's pretty much the same.
Okay, and how was your first stand-up show?
My first stand-up show actually went quite well. Yeah, it got quite a few laughs, which I was pretty pleased with.
Okay, so how would both of you describe your style of comedy? What about you, Jemima?
Mine's more about just retelling stories, really, and, you know, mocking myself.
Okay.
Quite self-depreciating.
Okay. What about you, Aidan?
Well, I mean, mine's like very similar in the sense that it's going through past experiences, but I'd say mine's a bit drier and tends to be a bit more cynical.
Okay, cool. So, do you normally show your stuff to like to other people apart from the society?
No, I don't.
Okay, cool. So, now it's that time in the show where we'll see how the guests will do under pressure in hit or miss. So we gave our comedians a live audience and gave them a topic that they needed to build a stand-up routine about. This is hit or miss.
Good. Well, I will set a topic by Jemima Collins to talk about types of students at Portsmouth University. I feel like there's also a lot of girls who go a bit over the top of their facial piercings. So I remember I was in a nightclub and I very awkwardly got off with a girl. And I went in for the kiss and she accepted. And but yeah, she had a tongue piercing. It was like licking a marble. It was the grossest thing. And I've seen a lot of students at Portsmouth University who are just arseholes. So I've seen, with such an artsy thing like film production, you get people who are like, oh, my project's going to be all about people falling on beds covered in blood, and you're like, you're a fucking serial killer, like, go away. I feel like the boys at Portsmouth University get quite a bad rap, especially in nightclubs. I mean, they are arseholes, obviously. But at some points, I just don't think the girls help themselves. I remember I was in a nightclub with the rugby team, and some boy came up to me and was like, oh, this is whatever her name was, I forgot what it was. And before I could even say, oh, hello, she just went, I can buy myself a drink, thank you. I was just like, okay, well, I wonder why no one sleeps with you. Fucking, I'm using like a laugh. Thank you for having me.
Okay, back in the studio now. Aidan, how did you think that challenge went for you?
I thought it was quite disorganised, but I got some laughs, so
Okay.
I'm pleased with it.
Jemima, how do you think he did?
I think it did really well. Like, the delivery of the jokes and the challenge was some of the best I've seen him deliver those same jokes, particularly the one about the tongue piercing. Delivered that brilliantly.
So what was it like having to give that routine and not being able to show it to like any of the members of society beforehand?
At first it was a little bit concerning, but it didn't really bother me too much in the end. I felt because a lot of it was just the same stuff I was doing.
So what about the audience reaction? I know you mentioned you had some laughs. Like, is it what you're normally used to? Was it better or worse?
They laughed when I was expecting them to, for the most part, so
Okay,
it wasn't really that surprising, to be honest.
cool. If you were to set him a different challenge, maybe for the future, what sort of stuff would you like to see him do?
Oh, probably like adventures and clubbing. Because I reckon you could tell us a lot of stories about your experiences in nightclubs.
I could, yeah.
So how do you think you would have done with that challenge?
To be honest, I reckon we probably would have done about the same in terms of quality.
Okay, cool. And do you have any last minute advice, just any quick tips for Aidan?
Just keep doing what you're doing, because at the rate you're going, you're going to be smashing the game.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. So that's it for this week, but join us next week. We'll be traveling to Leeds to find out more about the music industry. So see you next time on Make or Break.